Hey, what's up, guys? This is Grayson the Dean 221 Nichols here on the Elite Rounders channel. I'm also with Marco Capey today, and we're coming hot off of our last video with the greatest fold in poker history. As I'm sure a lot of you have been hearing the talk this weekend. If you haven't seen it, again, go check out the episode on Poker Go. But we witnessed Doug Polk fold the second nuts to Phil Hellmuth last week on the newest episode of High Stakes Poker. So Marco and I wanted to come in here and talk about this hand a little bit more because we talked about it on our video last week, got a lot of good input from you guys. Really enjoyed that. And again, as always, like and subscribe to our channel so you can see all the new videos we're putting out. But we had to come back here, and Marco wanted to kind of bring in some of the works on some of the programs and show you guys exactly what the right or wrong answer was here, because we talked about it a lot, and a lot of us felt this fold made sense. Some in the comments thought it was crazy. But yeah, this was a really cool hand, and let's just jump right back into it. Marco, what were some of your thoughts about this crazy hand that we saw last week?
Yeah, so first of all, actually, my thoughts were like, I mean, the guy, Mr. Chitio, who's always teaching never to fold anything, right? If you have the nuts or second nuts, third nuts, you never, ever, ever fold. So that was, of course, in my mind, first of all. And then you fold second nuts yourself. I mean, that was where my thoughts were at the beginning, right? Like, I mean, how can you preach something and not play like that? But in the end, in this situation, uh, it does look like he actually made really good fold. And like somebody said, PokerSovi softwares like this, they notice that if someone's using this absurd sizing like Helmut, maybe we can fold second nuts, which sounds so absurd. But when you think about the hand range we are against, set, we are 60, 65%. So, and then queen 10 off, we are 0% basically. So there's that sort of range, we are actually in terrible shape. So it was very surprising to me that you can actually kind of fold easily second nuts here technically, which was kind of shocking to me. But
Yeah, it sounds crazy, but the idea too, when you're someone as tight as Helmuth, this is where it really hurts you when you play such a limited amount of hands. Like if you pull up, we were kind of going through what some of the hands were that Phil might have in some of these spots, and we were able to narrow it down to like an insanely narrow range. Like we see Tom Dwan show up with hands like 3-6 suited and just like pretty like crazy things in spots. We don't see that from Phil. Like we were able to pretty much narrow his range down to like what, like is it 5 or 6 hands, Marco? So what do we got here?
so we got like 10, what we used on this flop, as you saw from the picture earlier, Jack 9-8, two spades flop. So we have here Helmut shoving basically. We didn't discount any combinations here. Maybe in reality we could put 50% of each. I don't think he's maybe shoving all of them or check jamming or whatever. But in this situation, we gave all the combinations. So he has ace 10 suited, king 10 suited, or spades, and all the combinations of queen 10 suited, queen 10 off, jacks, nines, eights, and 10-8 suited. So basically, versus this range, our solution was that we only have 33%. And
It's
again,
crazy.
in this scenario, like Grayson can explain in for the USA, I never understood this odds part, but yeah, you can explain how the pot comes, where we get the 45%.
Yeah, and so some quick math. We talk about this often. I see people try to like bust out like a scientific calculator in the middle of a tournament. I think that's crazy. Like, you're not going to be able to do some high level calculations, but it is good to have quick, feels for like coming up with some odds, right? And when Doug was facing this spot all in on the flop, he basically had to call 90,000 into a pot that already had about 20 in it. So you add the 90 to the 110 and you have 200,000, okay? 90 gets divided by 200,000 and you get 0.45. That means 45% that you need. And even if you don't need to do that exactly, just know that if you round the 90 up to 100, right? And then you divide it to 100 by 200, that's 0.5. We can do that easily, right? So you know that you need somewhere close to 50% equity. And look what Marco came up with here. What number is that, Marco?
So okay, so basically Doge's hand here, 10-7 off is 33.53%.
Yeah.
So it's not even close to a call. Like
Hmm.
even if you take like imagine maybe Helmut doesn't have in his range like top set playing like this, or if he doesn't have,
Yep.
but if he has all the straights, like the key thing here is like how many straights does he have when he shoves, and I think kind of the key takeaway here is like if we take away the queen 10 off, this changes kind of substantially, like in terms of ranges. Sorry, did not take it away, didn't change anything. Wait, okay.
Well, also, it's not just that. It's the 5 hands he has, right? It's the 8s, the 9s, the jacks, the queen 10, the 10-7, and then maybe ace 10 of spades, king 10 of spades. If he is so limited to just those hands, it's like he's either dead to the queen 10, chopping the other 10-7, or those other 5 hands have an immense amount of equity against him, whether they're trying to pair the board. Like, look at that right there. So look at the difference.
Okay.
It was
Little bit technical problems there, but we were able to remove the queen 10 off. For some reason, Equilab didn't want to remove it from Helmut's range, so I guess it's telling us something. So I guess it's very, very fully there in this case. But as you can see, if Helmut wouldn't open queen 10 off, it's a clear call. We have 50% roughly
That's our 50,
against Helmut's range.
Amazing.
So if he doesn't have queen 10 off in his open range, Doak has pretty clear call because it's way more towards sets and few straights which are better. The 3 combination of queen 10 suited, right? So
and like, sorry to interrupt, Marco. The cool thing about that is something we talk to our students about a lot. Some of the students don't tend to open enough, and we try to widen their ranges. It's so clutch what Marco is explaining here, that if you know for a fact that the person opening is on the tighter side and does not open queen 10 offsuit, it suddenly changes the entire complexion of this hand, and now you have to call. But if you know that this villain is tight and never opens that hand, it completely changes what you should be calling with. So knowing who you're up against and knowing what your opponent's opening range is really important. And on top of that, you yourself want to have a wider opening range in certain spots so good opponents cannot pinpoint your range so exactly to really give you a hard time, you know?
Yeah, and exactly in this hand, it seems like it's the most crucial thing. If you know the villain is not opening, it's a clear call, or 5%. It's a clear and clear, but you're definitely not folding. So that's why we came up with different situation for this as well. This was the scenario what we kind of picture what he would have. Maybe you can play around with these ranges in the sense like he's only shoving 50% of the 8s or 50% 9s. We can't exactly get into the mind of Phil Hellmuth here. And to be honest, if I would ask him, I don't yeah, maybe that as well. But it's not like we can exactly pinpoint, even myself, what is my strategy with all these hands. I don't think you can pinpoint anybody's brain to certain hands, certain something. So I think it's always good to use like before making these calculations that don't put 100%. I don't think anything of here is actually 100%. This is just illustration what we used here. There's no right or wrong answer, really.
I love this. And this was what I was just going to ask Marco. We were kind of toying with this earlier. And, you know, immediately when we were like, wow, this is a fold. This is crazy that the second nuts is a clear-cut fold here. So immediately our next question was, well, what does Phil need to have for it to now be a call? And that's what we kind of toyed with here. So looks like we have to add in most of the 2-pair combos. Is that right?
Yeah, so here we have like, I guess, again, I want to show the board here. Sorry if it's too small for you, but like, so now we added here basically like ace queen suited, ace queen of spades, king queen of spades. We added 9-8 suited, jack 8 suited, jack 9 suited. So basically 2-pair combos, jack 8 suited. I'm just checking we don't miss any jack 8, jack 9. Yeah, so we had the 2-pair combos here. So the suited ones, because we didn't want to make a scenario where Phil is opening exactly like jack 9 off, jack 8 off. That's another point. If the villain is very loose pre-flop, if this is there, like, and the same happens, it's way more likely he has jack 9 off, jack 8 off. Yeah. So this becomes probably very, very clear call again, because offsuit hands is a lot of combinations again. So
and also to that point, what Marco just said, something I really get after students for that we always hear you guys say, oh, I have to call in this spot. I challenge all of you watching, next time your brain says, I have to call, take a step back and see if maybe you can actually fold here. Because most of the time when I do this myself, I end up calling and losing, right? But the thing is, Marco and I play higher stakes. So when we are up against opponents who are playing optimally, we understand that there are spots where we have to call to protect our range and because we predict a certain amount of bluffs and behavior from our opponent. You guys might not be running into that if you're playing in like a $33 tournament online or like a $200 live tournament, right? Like your opponents aren't going to be so tough that
Mhm.
that you are forced into calling in these spots. So again, next time your brain says I have to call here, take a step back and think and be like, okay, maybe I don't, you know? So that what Marco was saying just made me think of that. I like that though.
Yeah, exactly. Totally true. That's always like whenever my brain's like I have to call, it's actually the process when I know I'm gonna lose the pot. Like
Yes.
that's why you need discipline at the point. Usually when that pops up to your mind, you're trying to justify the call somehow, but your brain is telling to fold. Actually, I think it's very common. It's like I have to call here, but you're beat. I think it's like
Yep.
I'm curious to call, but you shouldn't. I think that's
Yes,
actually
I
kind
like
of
it.
what happens all often in online poker
So
or
true.
life. Uh, so basically,
Exactly, exactly.
this scenario is funny because we just came up with these hands randomly, and the percentage we have with 10-7 off is now 44.99, and we need like 45. So this is like the range what he would need to have for us to call here 10-7 off. So
There-
we can think about like Phil Hellmuth's game. It's pretty unlikely we are facing range like this, and even in that case, we are making break-even call.
Yeah.
So it
And we're making a
does,
lot of assumptions about his flop range. You know, Phil is,
yeah,
he's probably going to bet a lot of these hands in the flop. So the
yeah,
idea that he checks and then like jams over two raises is very strange, So it like really narrows down his range. So I think he hurts himself by playing this in such an unusual fashion. I think
mm,
if he had c-bet, he would have gotten paid off if he had just c-bet here. That's what's crazy too. If he c-bets and board folds and Doug check raises, he gets all the money for sure. So maybe sometimes when you overthink it and check in these spots where you should c-bet, we might end up sealing our own fate. So remember that
mm.
too.
Yeah. And what do you think is the biggest mistake here by Helmut, like in terms of like the hand?
Probably that. To me, not c-betting. I think he got cute thinking, oh, board is on tilt, so I'm gonna check. But
Mm,
even if he check raised board, like this is what students do a lot as well. They go, okay, I'm gonna check to this guy and he's gonna bet, and I have the nuts, so I'm trapping him. But you don't really think, okay, yes, like say you do succeed and he does bet. Well, what are you doing afterward, right?
mm,
Because even if Phil did induce that bet from board, which he often will, what is he going to do? Because if he check raises, I argue that looks too strong and like he's
mm,
not going to get paid, right? So I think if Phil had just continuation bet in that spot, I think he would have
mm,
gotten paid. Like board might have tilt raised anyway, and if he had just folded, then Doug would have check raised and Doug would have never folded to him in that spot. But Phil, when he checks and then there's a bet, a raise, and then all in, it further amplifies his range to that
mm,
super tight nutted side. But if he just c-bets, Doug raises, he jams, I think he has many more draws, and then he could even be
mm.
spazzing and being stupid with an overpair. So like I think that is by far the biggest mistake for him. I think if he had c-bet here, I think he would have doubled up.
Yeah, I think the problem here really is like you said. I mean, like Helmut shoving after bulk raises. Like I mean, that just makes the range so tight. Like
Yep.
you're putting in, this was 100 big blinds, right? Like, so you're just shoving 100 big
More,
blind.
more. Yeah, he's putting in 250 big blinds. I think it's 200, 400.
What? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah,
Right. He should make it like 30K is what you're saying, right?
yeah, okay. So then it's even okay. Then it's like, bro, it's not. Yeah, it is not full. But like, yeah, I was surprised about the taxes. I thought it was like around 100 big blinds. Okay, sorry about that.
He's ridiculous.
Yeah. So
It's even more absurd when you realize that it was 200, 400, right?
yeah, then it's absurd. But like again, these type of plays probably work in soft life tournaments. He's shoving there.
Yeah.
The guy with 10-7 off is snap calling or snap
Yeah, I'll never.
calling probably pocket eights, right? Like again, in low stakes tournament online, if you're playing this, nobody's folding set of eights. Like I'm telling you,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
if somebody has two pair, they're not folding. So
Yeah.
again, that sort of play is kind of good on certain games where people don't have the discipline. But when you're playing as Polk, who's playing optimal, like in this case, they can fold second nuts.
Yep.
So this play becomes really, really awful because they can pinpoint your range exactly certain hands and they can make folds like
Yep.
this. So Helmut lost a lot of value here just by shoving. So that was like the biggest mistake.
For sure.
He should probably just always raise here. He should not shove because like while raising looks super, super strong,
So does shoving.
yeah, it's still like you can still perceive to be having some bluffs, you know, some 10x or something, but like maybe there can be some bluffs, right? It is probably very similar to this range, but like, you know, a few added bluffs might make Doge's play still different here. I don't know what he's going to like. Imagine if Helmut just raised here. What would Bulk do with 10-7? I don't think he's folding flop. I don't. And if the turn is good,
No.
it would be so hard to fold the straight. So I think I just have tough time seeing if he makes the flop like, you know, a small raise. It's tough for Bulk to fold like on
I
flop.
agree.
So
if he makes it 25K as
Yeah.
played, or he had just c-bet, I think he doubles up both ways. You're right.
Yeah.
And I think the lesson most of the people listening can take from this too, other than Phil is a total clown show, I think the real lesson they can take from it is when you flop the nuts, don't check. Because when you check with the nuts on the flop, like after you raised pre-flop, you know, it's just so obvious when you suddenly wake up on the river for a check raise or whatever, right? So if you raise pre-flop and you flop the joint, just go ahead and bet with it. People expect you to bet. And if they have something worth playing and worth paying you off, like you're going to get action. And if they didn't, you weren't going to get action anyway past one bet, right? Just make sure that, again, like when you check, like Phil raised pre-flop and then he checks the flop, and then he puts in the third bet all in. It is so specific there that it makes it impossible for him to have anything outside of those 5 or 6 hands we discussed and almost exclusively weighted towards one, you know? And if you're playing a hand that obviously, it's a mistake, right? So I do think that's something right off the bat people can learn. Don't check after you see raised pre-flop and you have a chance to c-bet with like a monster. It's better to bet there and then maybe check the turn if you have to check somewhere. I'm saying, but if you check the flop and then suddenly wake up later, there are few things in poker that scream, I have the nuts more than that, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would be curious to see how this hand would go. Like if the middle card just folds, you know, and Bulk just check raises the flop, or, you know, Helmut c-bets, and Bulk check raises, and then Helmut raises. Is he folding on flop straight? You know, like
no way.
He's just calling.
Phil would then be clowning around. Like Phil's the type who could have pocket aces there. Like again, let's take board out of the hand. I could see Phil c-betting with aces there, and then Doug check raising, and I could see Phil putting in a re-raise to like 25K to see where he's at with aces. Like
yeah.
So there's no way Doug would fold ever. Like, and it's just funny because if Phil had done either of these two normal standard things, he would have gotten all the money here. But because he is so unstandard and thinks he's so special with his white magic or whatever, he screwed himself and he lost. And I'm just not buying that he says he's won like 2 million in high stakes cash games in the last year. I think it's rubbish. I don't believe what he says. That's just a side note. So whatever. I'm just not buying that he's the best. That's for sure. Especially after what we watched in this game. So.
It's probably more like tournaments cashes. He's probably won 2 million worth of pots, but like how many he lost?
How much did he lose?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably similar. But yeah, okay. Thanks for watching. And again, if you like the video, just keep liking the videos and subscribe, please. Yeah, talk to you later.
See you guys.